Do you know that you are making genetic changes right now? Do you know that every time you forge a new connection neurologically in your brain, that somehow the DNA inside that nerve cell has to be signaled, and the moment it's signaled, in a matter of milliseconds, it grows a new branch and it reaches out and makes a connection? That's a genetic change. So then you would have to agree with me then, if you're not learning anything new or having any new experiences, for the most part, you're staying the same. Yes? And that the research with neuroplasticity says that your brain physically changes from every new thought you embrace, every new choice you make, every new experience you have, every new behavior you demonstrate, every new emotion that you can cultivate. There are chemical and physical changes that take place in your brain, which means you are changing your mind. So then if you begin to learn information and you wired it in your brain, and then you keep revisiting that information, you start installing the neurological hardware, yes? If you keep revisiting it and keep reviewing it and keep firing and keep wiring, the hardware program becomes a software program. Now it becomes an automatic software program because you practiced it enough times, it becomes automatic. And we call those neurological networks. And neurological networks are just gangs of neurons that have fired and wired together to form a community of neurosynaptic connections. And now, if you keep revisiting it, it becomes an automatic program. So you have a neural network to brush your teeth, to put on makeup, to talk a language, to complain, to drive your car. It just becomes an automatic program. You understand, yes? So the research shows that if you take a group of people who've never played the piano before, and you have them learn one-handed scales and chords, and you do a functional brain scan on their brain before the activity, and then you do a functional brain scan on their brain after the activity. If they come for 2 hours a day for 5 days, and they practice those scales and chords over and over again, at the end of 5 days, when you scan their brain, there are physical changes in their brain. They've grown new networks of neurons. You learn something new, you make new connections. Knowledge is the precursor to experience. Then once you begin to get some instruction, you get your body involved, and when you get your body involved, you have a new experience, and experience enriches the brain. More neurons begin to connect because experience is more sensory input. If you pay attention to what you're doing, you have to pay attention, and if you keep repeating it over and over again, the neurons begin to fire and wire, and you create a cluster of neurons to reflect your external activity. But if you take another group of people and you have them close their eyes, and you have them mentally rehearse playing the scales and chords, at the end of 5 days, those people who rehearsed playing the scales and chords in their mind grow the same amount of circuits in their brain as if they were physically performing the activity. In other words, when you're truly focused and you're truly paying attention, the brain does not know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And the brain literally believes that the thought is the experience, and without lifting a finger, it looks like they have been playing the piano for 5 days. In other words, it looks like the experience has already happened. So it begs the question, what do you mentally rehearse all day long? And what do you physically demonstrate all day long? Because what you mentally rehearse all day long, think about, and what you physically rehearse, demonstrate, is who you are on a neurological level. So then, if you're rehearsing a new way of being then, and you continuously revisit what it would be like to be that person, just like the piano players, you're installing the neurological hardware ahead of the experience. If you keep repeating the experience over and over again in your mind, the hardware program becomes a software program. It becomes a new neurological network, which is an automatic program, which becomes part of your new identity. So when I say to my daughter, you can't get up from your meditation until you feel like you just shopped your brains out, she says, no problem, because she's going to have a great experience in there, and she's going to emotionally give her body a taste of the future. And she's going to get up like it already is done. You understand, yes? So then you may say to me, well, that's really good dinner conversation, Joe. I understand how mental rehearsal can change the brain because you can change your brain just by thinking about it. I understand neuroplasticity, but how does it change the body? Well, I did an experiment where they took a group of people and they had them pull a spring for an hour a day for 4 weeks. And then they took another group of people and they had them come and mentally rehearse pulling the spring in their mind for 4 weeks. And all they had to do was visualize it and say, harder, stronger, harder. And they kept doing it over and over again. Well, at the end of the experiment, the people who pulled the spring had a 30% increase in muscle strength. Well, that makes sense, right? You put a load on a muscle, you take that muscle through a range of motion, there's resistance, the muscle fibers tear, and they grow back bigger. That's a genetic change. You with me? That's accommodation. But the people who mentally rehearsed pulling the spring, at the end of 4 weeks, had a 22% increase in muscle strength, but they never lifted a finger. In other words, their body looked like they'd been experiencing the event ahead of the actual event, and there were physical changes in their body to look like they have been exercising their finger for 4 weeks. Now their body is in the future. You with me? So if there are physical changes by thought alone in your brain and body to look like the experience has already happened, then the experience has already happened. So then, the process of mental rehearsal means then that you are going to imagine yourself living in that future, the choices you're going to make, the behaviors you're going to demonstrate, what you're going to do with all your wealth, how it's going to feel, what experiences you're going to create, who you're going to contribute to, how you're going to make a difference. And if you keep revisiting that same future every single day, would you agree, just like the piano players, it's going to look like it's happened to you already? And would you agree then, in order for your muscles to be 22% stronger, you had to signal some new genes in new ways just by thought alone? Would you agree with that? But if you're thinking the same way, making the same choices, having the same experiences, same behaviors, same emotions, then you keep the same genes on and the other genes off, and now you just got a limited amount of genes and you're headed for your genetic destiny. So then, research paper after research paper after research paper shows that individual genes, one gene can have 35,000 variations on one gene. One gene. So then as you begin to change your internal state and you begin to give thanks before the experience happens and you marry a clear intention with an elevated emotion and you can sustain that for an extended period of time, you're knocking on the receptor site outside of the cell. And the longer you can live in that state, the more you're signaling the gene, and sooner or later that gene turns on and it makes a new protein. And the protein is an expression of life. An expression of life is the expression of health. And all of a sudden, by thought alone, you change the health of your body. Or your body begins to know what abundance is. It knows it because it becomes automatic. It becomes second nature. So then, here's how you appear to the world, and here's how you really feel inside. And until we start looking at these emotions, looking within and unmemorizing them, we'll keep using everything in our external environment to re-identify, to create a new identity. You'll buy the thing, you'll meet the new people, you'll go to the new places, but when the novelty wears off, this feeling keeps coming back. You with me? And if not, that doesn't make it go away, then you start relying on substances or shopping or gambling or video gaming or overeating or undereating to try to make this feeling go away. And the moment you correlate that thing that you're doing with the absence of this feeling or making this feeling go away, you begin to become dependent on that thing. But if the rush of chemistry, the shopping or the drug or the gambling or whatever produces a rush of pleasure chemicals in the brain, you keep reprogramming or recalibrating the pleasure centers to a higher level, so you need a little bit more the next time and a little bit more the next time. And it sounds like an addiction to me, doesn't it? So we could say behind every single addiction, substance addiction, there's an emotional addiction. And people are doing their best to try to make it go away. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we've been hypnotized into believing that change happens outside of us instead of inside of us. So then if you're then unmemorizing these emotions, layer by layer, you are overcoming your emotional self, then you are freeing your body from the chains of the past, aren't you? And every time you unmemorize one of those survival emotions, you're going from particle to wave, matter to energy, and you're liberating energy, and now you have available energy to begin to command the new future. So every person, everything, every place, everything in your external environment, you are bound to in a field beyond space and time. So as long as you're living by the same emotion every day, you're living by the same energy, your past, present reality is staying the same because you're bound to everything in your life because you keep re-experiencing it to produce the same emotion. And the same emotion then keeps you connected to every person, everything in your life. So then think about this. Come on, geniuses. As you begin to unmemorize those emotions, and you're sitting in your meditation and your body is raging on you. And it's impatient and it's frustrated and it's guilty and it's judging you. And you're waiting for it to finish. To run through all of those programs, and you're waiting and you're observing it and you're saying, that's your best? Come on. Let's keep going. Let's cross the river. And when you're done, I'm going to recondition you to a new mind. And you're observing your thoughts. And you're noticing your propensities and behaviors, and you're looking at those emotions, but you are not investing your energy in it. You're observing it. And as you begin to overcome yourself and liberate yourself energetically from that emotion, don't you know that you are breaking the bonds to everyone and everything in your known life? Think about it. As you overcome the emotion, you snap the energy to the people and conditions in your life that keep it the same. And now you're calling energy back to you, and you now have more available energy. And you, as the quantum observer, are no longer attached to your past, present reality because you are no longer emotionally bound to it in a field of energy beyond space and time.